Hello, everyone. So my name is Stephen Milton, and I'm joined by Christyn Perkons, and we are here just to talk briefly a little bit about when you go out into the community, whether it matters that you admit that you're Christian and that you're doing it for Christian reasons. And to get into that, we're going to talk about some experiences we've had about working in the community, specifically doing providing food for the community. And I'm going to let Kristen go first.
My parish has been running a community hub that includes a free clothing store that I started with another partner in the parish, and a community dinner. And we get over 200 people a week when we're pre-pandemic. Sort of our goal has been to create community and to be Jesus to one another, but also to see Jesus in one another. So part of that was volunteers didn't just stand on one side of a table and deposit food on plates. When everybody was seated, there were chairs saved at every table, and volunteers would take their dinner and go and eat at the tables so that they could hear people's stories and share their own hardships of the week or joys of the week. So again, building relationships. What we found was nobody, literally nobody, talked about their faith, not their faith struggles, not their faith joys, not the fact that they had a faith.
Right.
And so nobody from the community had any sense of why we were doing this, I think. And then we started getting we got a lot of publicity in the community. So a lot of organizations in the community would say, can my real estate team come in and visit and help volunteer one time? And we had schools come. So people would come, they would wear t-shirts that said, I'm from blah, blah. And so we would get people at the table saying to our volunteers, well, are you from a real estate company, or what organization are you from? Because they had no idea that they were people from the church.
Yeah. Well, if I can just break in for a second, I think that's really interesting because I have a similar experience in that I volunteered at a church-run soup kitchen for like 12 years, and there for the first course we would just serve it to the tables, so they didn't have to line up or anything. Second course, they would come and line up, and our volunteers didn't sit with the people, and so there really was an us and them kind of thing, kind of a middle class, very poor, to homeless kind of distinction. And what I noticed that really surprised me but was consistent was that most of the time it wasn't people who went to that church who were doing the volunteering. There were only a couple of congregants who volunteered with any regularity at all. And instead, the program had attracted a whole bunch of secular and lapsed Christians who came, some of them very new age, others sort of, Catholics who, had rejected Catholicism but couldn't bear to go anywhere else, which often happens, right? So there was nothing Christian happening in terms of the dialogue or the discussions among the volunteers. Dinner starts, right? Are you going to do a grace or not? Right? Like that's, the question, right? So what do? Here we are in a church basement. We've got, like, in our case, about 100 people sitting down for dinner. So do you do grace? And what our minister did was she would come up and she would have all the volunteers sway back and forth and sing "Lean on Me." And you could just see the faces of the people, just like, why are these middle class people performing for me? I just want to be fed. And I asked her, why do you do this? Why not just say grace? She said, oh, I don't want to offend anybody because they're not all Christians. And so on the Sundays when she wouldn't be there, I would do a grace. I would just do a straight, and I would say, in a better world, none of us would be here unless we wanted to be here strictly for fellowship. None of us would need the food. We would just come to hang out. And there would be this chorus of amen, because it was mostly guys in the room, and you could just hear the raw. Yeah, that's what it's about.
We finally went, okay, this is a problem. We need to be able to talk about why we're doing this. And people were very reluctant because they did not want to evangelize. Right. So what we did was we created a workshop about that was about how to develop your own 30-second elevator speech. And it's not about trying to change somebody else. It's about trying to convey how you have been changed by God, by Jesus, by your relationship with the church in a way that excites people because we're excited about it. Or if we're not, we're hoping people would find some excitement.
Right.
So we got together on a Saturday morning. We had people write their elevator speeches. We practiced it in teams, and then people committed over the course of the next month to sharing their elevator speech and then coming back on a Saturday morning again a month later and saying, how did it go?
When does that mean that pre-pandemic, every week when your volunteers would sit down at a table, they would always do that 30-second
No.
spiel?
Nope. The idea was this was something you needed to be prepared to find a moment in the conversation to say. So not everybody says it every week. But anytime there's a, why do you people do this? And it actually comes up a lot, especially when there's a new person at a table. There's always the, wow, why do you do this? Or even just a comment about the program, which is an entree into saying, well, here's why we do it, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and equally, like, there's lots of churches, particularly in the Toronto area, where the original Christian community has moved out. They just moved away to other suburbs or whatever. And say a Muslim community has grown up around the church. So the church isn't going to be dealing with a local Christian population. It's a Muslim population if they decide to do a community outreach event in some way, right? But, the world would be a better place if Muslims could know, hey, Christians do good things and they get it from Jesus. Keep doing the
and
Christian
care
thing.
about you.
Okay.
And in my ideal world, we would have volunteers who are part of the community, who are different faiths, who can also have a 30-second elevator speech. Why are you here? This is why I'm here. It has to do with my relationship with Allah. For me, that's just as valid. And when we're saying to people, we're inviting you into this to do missional projects, you can't do the mission without being able to articulate what the mission's about. It's not just the activity, it's the intention behind it. It's the theology of it, all said in accessible language.
Yeah, and I think it's important to be able to say, this isn't my idea, I'm not doing this because I'm terrific. I'm no hero. I'm doing it because of what flows through me. It's not me. You're meeting God in some way through our actions, not because we're special people, but precisely because we're not. And we realize that. That's what makes, we
Yes,
dust
I
off
love
the
that.
window so the light can come through.
I love that word. You're meeting God through our actions. One of the things I would say is that people at my parish, when the resistance about saying anything was, well, God, people can see that God is acting through us. And one of my comments would be, not unless you articulate it at the same time. Goodness is coming through you. People can see that you're good, that kind things are happening and good things are happening, but they don't know that you're attributing those to God. So they're not attributing them to God either. They're just attributing them to this kind of innate goodness vibe in the world.